All right, getting into our first lesson here of chapter 14. Chapter 14 is our chapter on logic. So just determining a lot of true and false type of statements. So we'll get into more of that as time goes on, but one of the main things that we have to deal with throughout this chapter is just a lot of notation and a lot of vocab. And so those are two things that you really got to highlight as we go through the chapter. That's really important. It's a pretty short chapter. It's about 4 lessons total, so we'll move through it fairly quickly. But again, the key on this is really pay attention to the vocab and the notation that are used. Those are the two main keys that students may struggle with come test time if they don't pay attention to those things. So one of the main things this chapter revolves around is the idea of propositions. Propositions are simply defined as any statement that can be defined as true or false. So these are true or false statements. And I'll give you a couple examples of those right here. So true or false statements. So if you look at statement A right here, if I said, hey, that guy over there is 6 feet tall, would it be appropriate to respond to that statement with, yes, that's either true, or no, that's false? And that would make sense. If I said that person is 6 feet tall, you would either agree or disagree. It's either true that he's 6 feet tall, or it's false that he's not 6 feet tall. So yes, that would be a proposition. If I said that x equals 3, that would be a proposition, because that is either true or false. Either x is 3 or it's not. So yes, that is a proposition. But if I gave you a command like tie your shoes, or look over there, or do this or do that, that is not something that you can say is either true or false. That's simply a command. And so this is not a proposition. Whether you respond with a true or false, and this is a lot of what we get into in this chapter, is its truth value. So right here, if we said he is 6 feet tall, if that is true, then true would be the truth value of that statement. If the guy is not 6 feet tall, then it's false, and we would say false is its truth value. Getting down here to the second example, the idea of negation simply goes with the word not. And so the symbol that you want to associate with the word not is that little symbol right there. We have dealt with something similar to this in chapter 13, and I'll show you the connection towards the end of this video of the connection between chapters 13 and 14. But this is the symbol for this chapter that we use for the word not. We did have a different one last chapter. We'll look at those here in a minute. So right here, you have statement P is Santa is real. So if statement P says Santa is real, then the negation of statement P would simply be to throw in the word not, and we would get Santa is not real. I am not saying whether or not that is true. We're just showing that these are the two different variations of that statement. We could either say Santa is real, or we could say Santa is not real. If you looked over here for algebraically, if we said the original statement was that x equals 4, the negation of that would then be that x does not equal 4. And again, one of those is true and one of those is false. So important on this that we recognize they could never have the same truth value. One has to be true and the other has to be false. But they could never both be true or never both be false. Because these do not agree with each other. Either Santa is real or he's not real. One of those has to be true and one of those has to be false. Going down to example 3, the idea of a conjunction. Conjunction simply is when we throw in the word and to combine two statements. So if I have two propositions, say the first one is I am going to the beach, and another proposition is I am going surfing. If I wanted to form the conjunction, I simply combine those two statements with the word and. So right here we would say something along the lines of I am going to the beach and I am going surfing. Of course, we would write that full statement out on the test. I'm just doing the shorthand here for the notes. But that's what we would need to say. We just simply combine both statements, connecting them with the word and. Again, know the notation for this. That's really important because things are done throughout the chapter in words and in symbols, and so it's really important that we know how to go back and forth between the two. So when is a conjunction true? Because a lot of what we deal with throughout this chapter are whether or not things are true and whether or not they're false. So how do we know if a conjunction is true? Well, it's only true if both propositions are true. If you kind of think about it logically for a minute, and that's why this is called logic, if I were to tell you I am going to the beach and I am going surfing, well, in order for me to be telling you the truth, both of those things would have to happen. I would have to go to the beach and I would have to go surfing. And if I only did one of those but not the other, then I would not be telling you the truth. There's a chart that I want you to see really quick that organizes when things are true and when things are false. So if you look right here, here are the two original statements. I'm going to the beach and I am going surfing. If both of those are true, then the conjunction is also true. And this is there, you can see the conjunction symbol right there. So if both those are true, then it's true. But look at every other scenario. In every other scenario, it's not true. So if you look at these, if the first one's true but the second one's not, well, then the whole statement is false. Same with this statement right here. If the first one is false but the second one's true, the entire statement is still false. And obviously if both are false, if I didn't really go to the beach and I didn't really go surfing, then again, I am not telling you the truth, and the entire thing would be false. These tables are what we're going to deal with ultimately by the end of the chapter. We get one big table with all the rules, and so I want to start sprinkling these in throughout the chapter so you understand how to read these tables. So moving back here to example 4. So in example 3, we talked about the idea of conjunction with the word and. In example 4, we now have disjunction, and this goes with the word or. So I text in class, or I hate reality TV shows. And so if I'm going to combine two statements with a disjunction, we simply throw in the word or. So I text in class, or I hate reality TV shows. So that would be our disjunction. So how do we know when that statement is true or when that one is false? Well, in this case, and again, think about it logically, it is true if at least one of those are true. Because I threw in the word or. Because of the word or, only one of those has to be true in order for me to be telling the truth. So if I were to tell you this statement, hey, I text in class or I hate reality TV shows, well, if I really do text in class, but this is not false, let's just say I really do love reality TV. I don't, by the way, but let's just say that I did. Even though this is false, I am still overall telling you the truth because this one is true. Or if you flip that around and I said, hey, I either text in class or I hate reality TV shows, and you come to find out that this is not true, I don't really text in class, but this is true, I really do hate reality TV, overall I still told the truth because of the word or, only one of them has to be true for the overall statement to be true. And again, there's another chart that would show you those rules in your book. You can take a look at it. We'll see more charts as time goes on here, so let me move on. All right. So I wanted you to see the comparison from chapter 13 to chapter 14. Here's what we did in chapter 13 with set notation, and here's what we're now doing in chapter 14 with logic notation. We get a lot of the same words, but the symbols are a little different. So last chapter, this represented the word not. Now it's this symbol right here. Here is the connection between the and symbol. So last chapter, here was the and we used this idea, right? That was the and. Those were areas where both statements were true. And this is the symbol that we now use. With the or statement, right, we had this kind of an idea for the or statement, one big happy union family here for the ors. It only had to be true about either one of them in order to get shaded. And so here's the symbol that we now use for logic to go with that. So moving on down here to our last example, this is something called exclusive disjunction. So remember, just a minute ago, we said that disjunction was the word or. this is still dealing with the word or, but it's exclusive because it wouldn't make sense for both statements to be true at the same time. So take a look. Exclusive meaning only one of them could possibly be true. So let me give you these two statements. If the first proposition says I am in California and the second one says I am in Florida, well, notice if I combine those with the word or, only one of those statements could be true. If I were to say I am in California or I'm in Florida, right, only one of those could possibly be true. If I were to tell you that they're both true, you would say that my statement is false. And so when we get into exclusive disjunction, only one of them could be true in order for the entire statement to be true. Let me quickly show you the table on that. All right, so take a look at this table for a minute. This is in your formula handout that you get for the test, and so I want to start introducing it to you, even though we're only in the first lesson right now. But over here on the left side, these are the two propositions. So this is like the given information to you are these two columns right here. And so here's how we read this. There's kind of a little break right here. These are the two things that are given to you, and depending on their truth value, we know how to respond with a true or false statement. So I want you to look at the couple that we've talked about so far. Right here, here's statement P. If statement P is true, if it's true, then not P would have to be false. And so what you're seeing on the left side of this line are the things that are given to you, and what you're seeing on the right side of this line are the response that you would give. So again, if statement P were false, then not P would be true. That's how we would respond. Here's the conjunction that we talked about. This is the word and I showed you this table here a minute ago. But with the word and, again, here's what we said. If both statements are true, then our response would be overall the entire thing was true. If the first part is true but the second part is false, then our response would be false. Right? And you can go on down the list here. Here's the word or. So the disjunction is the word or. And again, if both statements are true, if I go to the beach or I go surfing, if they're both true, then the overall statement is true. And when it comes time to the test, all you have to be able to do is interpret this chart, and we just fill in our responses. So anytime you have a disjunction case, right, the or case, all we have to do is take a look at the first two statements, and depending on whether or not they're true or false, we can answer with our response. So notice with a disjunction case, all the cases are true except one. If both statements are false, so if I said I'm going to go to the beach or I go surfing, if they're both false, then that's the only time that the overall statement is really a false statement. Here's the exclusive disjunction. This is the one I wanted to point out. This is the example we're on right now. In an exclusive disjunction, right, then it's true only if one statement is true and the other one is false. So these two middle cases right here are the only time that the overall statement is true. If I said I am in California or I'm in Florida, well, if I try to convince you that both those things are true, you would have to say, sorry, that's a false statement. Right? Or right here, if I were to tell you, hey, I'm in California or I'm in Florida, and you found out that neither one of those things were true, then your response would be, hey, you're not telling me the truth. That's a false statement. And so this is the chart that we're going to be working with all throughout the chapter. So let me go back to this to finish it off. So again, here's kind of our real life example for this. If I were to say, here's a few statements. I am married, I am an athlete, I am single. I wanted you to see the difference between disjunction versus exclusive disjunction. So right here, if I were to combine the statements P or Q, I am married or I am an athlete, could both those things be true at the same time? Absolutely. I can be married and I can be an athlete. So here is a disjunction case where both of those statements could be true. So as far as this first example, this is just a case of disjunction. Compare that though to this statement. if I said I am married or I am single, right? Notice both of those things can't be true at the same time. I am either married or I am single. Only one of those could be true. So this is an example of exclusive disjunction, because it wouldn't make sense for both of those things to be true at the same time. So that's the difference between disjunction versus exclusive disjunction.